not about controlling your emotions. That doesn't work for most people. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Mind Engineer community. Here, Tommy Walker, talking about the mind, the heart, and aligning everything, as you can see here in the logo that we use in our branding, because the idea is to understand how the mind works. And instead of fighting against it, trying to get where you want to go by force, by control, or different adaptations that people use, we want to share the best way to be able to start making changes in your life. So one of the first things that we want to recommend is that we try to stop controlling our emotions. Our emotions are part of who we are. It's part of this human experience that we're living right now. And try to control them, to deal with them, is not the best thing, because if we think about this, control comes from ego. It doesn't come from the heart. It doesn't come from, if you want, from spirit. So when you try to control emotions, you're coming actually from ego. So it's ego trying to control something. And we know normally what happens when ego is trying to stay in control, while when it's driving the car, it is not the best thing for us to happen. So then you might be thinking, okay, Tommy, I don't need to control my emotions. So how do I do? How do I deal with them? So great. That's the idea, to start being open to doing something different. When we were kids, we learned to control our emotions, because if we felt sad and we started crying, mom or dad would tell us to stop crying, stop crying, or I'll give you a reason to cry, don't be a whiner. And we were judged and criticized whenever we were feeling different types of emotions. So we've learned to quote unquote control them. But at the end, what we've learned is to disconnect, to repress them, to numb them. So we're not actually dealing with them. Another thing is, when we were angry, we were not allowed to feel angry. So we learned how to disconnect. We created adaptations to those emotions, but we didn't actually learn how to navigate them. And the other day, I was putting together a course that I'm starting to offer for leaders. And what came to my mind is this: imagining, a big ship going through a storm. When you're sailing, you cannot control the storms. Yes, we can try to move away from them a little bit, but when we're inside of a storm, we cannot just, control the storm and, everything's going to be fine. No, we need to learn how to navigate better to be able to go through those storms. The storm would be when we get these emotional rushes, these emotional states in us, and to understand that the storm in itself, it is not the problem. The emotional state that you're feeling is not the problem, is the byproduct of something deeper. What does that mean? When we're actually feeling something negative, it is because actually we're telling ourselves a narrative, a story, that are creating different stories, are creating the different emotions that we're feeling. The example that I always give: if I see a dog and a person, I'm going to be happy because I like dogs, depending on what type of dogs, right? But, if somebody was bitten by a dog and that dog shows up, the person, because of the story, the experience they had, is going to be negative towards dogs. And that could be in any area. It could have been that when you were a kid, your parents fought over money. So now your thought about money is something negative. Does that mean that money is negative? No, it just means that you have a negative story in your mind. So when you start wanting to make more money, when you start trying to charge for your services, asking for a raise in your job, or whatever it is, you're going to struggle if you have negative narratives around money. And what you're going to get as the symptom, and listen to this because this is the most important thing, what you're going to get as a symptom is you're going to feel anxiety. You're going to feel stress. So have you ever found yourself not being able to ask for a raise, ask for the money that you think you deserve? Or when you were asking for it, your maybe voice was trembling. You were not being able to put the words together as you would like to. Your body language was, a protection. That has to do with the narratives you're running in the back of your head. So instead of fighting yourself because of the emotions that you're having, the idea is to start embracing what you're going through. When we're able to start loving and accepting what is, and the technique I use with the people that I work with, right hand on her left shoulder, left hand on her right shoulder, and we hug ourselves and we love and accept that there's a part of us that is struggling through a specific circumstance. The other day I was, at a company had hired me to offer a presentation, a course. It's actually a little bit longer. It's a course that I'm offering for the people in there. And there was a couple that, were working together. They were owners of an entrepreneur, and they had set their goals for the end of the month, and the end of the month had come and they were not able to hit those goals. So the guy was feeling very sad, angry, disappointed, and he was venting how he was feeling. And his wife was getting really triggered because of the things that because of his state, his emotional state was triggering the partner, right? And I started talking to him. I told him, hey guys, look, are you willing to do some practice to understand what's actually going on between you two guys? And they were very open. It was very nice. So I started talking to her. So I started asking her, instead of, just what are you feeling? I'm feeling sad. I don't like how he's behaving. I don't like his anger. And what she was trying to do is try to control him to stop him from behaving the way that he was behaving, from saying the things that he was saying. So I then started to say, okay, I understand that you would like to have him change and not get so negative, grumpy and things like that when things don't go well. But what are you listening? What is the narrative you're telling yourself with his behavior? So when we started going deeper, this was amazing, guys. She was telling me that she felt frustrated because she was putting a lot of energy into the company, into the business, and she wasn't able to spend as much time as she would like to with her daughter. So when I asked her, hey, how does it make you feel about yourself that you're not being able to spend so much time with your daughter, and that you have to spend so much time with the business, and now the business didn't give you the results that you wanted? And she told me right away, I feel I'm a bad mom because I'm investing all this time in the business and the business is not doing as it's supposed to do. And now he's complaining. So it just makes me feel I'm a bad mom. So I told her, so is it the problem that he's complaining? And she's like, not really. So I told her the true problem is what you're telling yourself with his behavior. So I was telling her it was your emotions that had a narrative behind it, that you were trying to control him to stop doing what he was doing, when actually you needed to go deeper to understand what you were telling yourself. So when it has to do with relationships, friendships, boss, co-workers, whatever, partners, it doesn't matter, what the other person is doing, is what you're telling yourself with what the other person is saying or doing. And don't get me wrong, that doesn't give you free pass to go treat people like crap because now it's up to them how they feel. No, no, no. I'm not saying that, guys. Please don't take this out of context. But yes, what I can tell you is whenever somebody is saying something, it's or doing something, it's what you're telling yourself. So imagine somebody says, "Oh, Tommy, I'm not understanding. I could get triggered because the person is not understanding what I'm saying because it makes me feel that I'm not a good, coach, a good, teacher, or a good, lecturer, somebody, a speaker." There you go. So it's the narrative that you're telling yourself actually that is really bothering you. So this woman was feeling that she was not a good mom. That's something she needed to work on. Then we went to the guy to find what was going on with him, that he was going into a very negative place. And one of the things that he realized, that when he was a kid, his dad was all about performing, all about doing good, getting results. So whenever he didn't get results, he would beat himself up, exactly or very similar to how his dad did to him. He was doing it to himself. So his dynamic was realizing that he had a task that his worth had to do with the results that he got. And in her case, mom, she had to work on also her things because she also had attached her worthiness as a mom because of the results that she got or not. So again, what I want to bring here, guys, that when you try to control emotions, normally you're numbing them, you're repressing them, you're ignoring them, you're losing the opportunity to learn what's behind the emotion. Because again, every time, guys, there is some negative emotion, every time there is a negative story you're telling yourself. And you cannot change the emotion. You can force yourself. Tony Robbins teaches us to put the superhero pose, right, to change your state. But when you do that, you miss the amazing opportunity to learn the story you're telling yourself, to be able to start rewriting the story. But if you don't know the story you're telling yourself, it's impossible to rewrite that story. So eventually, you're going to need to be forcing yourself to feel in a different way, to force your state, instead of just loving and accepting what is, because that comes from heart, that comes from soul, spirit. I believe we're spiritual beings living a human experience. I believe that we are an image of God here on earth. So it means that we have the potential to experience unconditional love. So it's very easy to experience unconditional love when things are going the way that you want, when you're getting the results that you want. Experiencing unconditional love to you and to others when things are not going the way you expect, that's the big challenge, guys. That is true unconditional love, because it's very easy for me to love somebody else when they're behaving the way that I want them to behave. But how can you love unconditionally somebody else when they're not doing what you want them to do, when they're not treating you well? And I'm not saying to let them walk all over you. No, it's setting boundaries. Don't get me wrong, guys. And I've learned that along all these years practicing these things, how to be able to start setting healthy boundaries. But at least is being able to still feel love and acceptance for somebody else, even though they might not be behaving correctly. So again, be careful, because the ego wants to fall into control, controlling others, controlling you, controlling the emotions. So it's not about controlling emotions, it's about learning from them. Emotions are the symptom that there's something deeper going on. If there's a positive emotion, it could be that you're telling yourself a nice story. Oh, when I achieve this, I'm going to feel happy. So when you achieve it, now you feel happy. It's because of the story you're telling yourself. Some people have been fired from their jobs, and they were very happy of being fired, because now they were thinking that they were able to now do something for themselves, start their own business. It was the starting point for a change in their life. Others are fired and they go into a very negative downward spiral. What is the difference? The difference between one person and the other is one is telling them a positive story to themselves, and the other one is telling himself a negative story. So if we start understanding that I behind any behavior, behind any negative emotion, there is a negative story that you're telling yourself. So what I normally teach is you have narrative, script, belief that creates an emotion. And the emotion, as we keep running the same narrative over and over again, we start creating actions, reactions that end up becoming behaviors. So as we start understanding the mind at a deeper level, it makes it much easier to make changes. Remember, the mind is not going to tell you, oh, I'm scared of asking for a raise because I'm scared of being rejected. The mind is going to tell you, oh, maybe it's not the right time to ask for a raise. Maybe when things get better, when I work harder, then I can ask for a raise. And the mind start telling you stories to prevent you from being rejected, from feeling whatever negative, or exposing yourself to a situation that could be uncomfortable. How many times do you find yourself avoiding conflict? That's another big thing that I work with a lot of people. Avoiding conflict, whether it is at home, whether it is at work, wherever it is, with friends. Where are you avoiding conflict? That's another protective mechanism. The mind is not going to tell you, oh, I'm avoiding conflict because I don't want to feel bad. It's feeling bad because, I don't know, maybe somebody did something that I didn't set a boundary, because I was trying to avoid conflict, but I still have the conflict within me. So I might not have a conflict with the other person, but the conflict is still within me. So then is, how am I feeling? I'm feeling stress, I'm feeling anxiety, I'm feeling scared, I'm feeling angry. Deal with those emotions. I work with so many couples that they're, struggling so much to get along together because normally they're telling negative stories to themselves. Like the other day, I was working with a couple, and it had happened that, the guy started getting a little bit, irritated, and she thought that he was irritated And she fill in the blanks with something that made sense to her why he could have been irritated. And when I asked the guy why he was irritated, it had nothing to do with what she thought it was that he was irritated with. So I told them both that they need to practice more communication for him to be able to really express what's going on, because he was stuffing in what was bothering him till eventually he blew up. She fill in the blanks with, oh, he's irritated because of this. And it had nothing to do with what she thought. So again, guys, communication is one of the biggest things that we can start practicing more and more. And it is getting uncomfortable. Don't get me wrong, guys. But if we want to truly lead our life, lead the life that we want, we need to start practicing these things. And that's one of the big things that I'm sharing more and more. The DNA of Conscious Leaders of the Future, the book that I just launched, has to do with that. And guys, I got to get it to you guys, to Kim, to Richard. Thank you for being here. Remind me to share the book with you guys, because, you know, I just launched a new book where I share more of these things of understanding ourselves to then be able to lead the life that we want. It's very difficult to lead good relationships, healthy relationships with whoever, family, friends, at work, in my business. Doesn't matter. A conscious leader is a person that can impact the life of others. It could be going to the grocery store and impact a life there. It could be down the street, impact a life there. And I truly believe that we're all called to become conscious leaders in our life, to be able to lead a better life that can eventually change the world. Because as Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. We want better conscious leaders around the world, especially in our countries, in the world, wherever. The only way is to start becoming that ourselves. And that's what I'm trying to share with these things that I'm sharing weekly, to help you guys become more conscious leaders, understand your own emotions and stop trying to control them, try to navigate through them to find what is the narrative, the story that you're telling yourself that is affecting you in a negative way today that you're not aware of. So by dealing with our emotions, navigating through them, feeling them, and yes, it is uncomfortable. Yes, it is painful. And you know why it's painful? Bessel van der Kolk talks about this in the book, The Body Keeps the Score. What he shows there, and there are proved studies around this, that when people were exposed to physical pain and they were hooked up to these electrodes, the mind was firing different areas of the brain that were associated with physical pain. Then these same people were exposed to emotional pain, and many of the same centers lit up too. So when you're navigating your emotions, is like somebody would be beating you up physically. That's why it's so hard, and people find adaptations, ways to try to move away from the emotions, because emotions, many times the negative emotions, hurt even, it looks like a physical level. But when we understand that, we can endure that a little bit more and stretch the muscles to deal with more and more pain, so that we can eventually release it. Because if not, it stays in the body and it can even affect our health. More and more studies are showing that the more those emotions are kept in the body, the more it affects us. In the book, what's the book from Gabor Mate? The book, The Myth of Being Normal, or The Myth of Normal, from Gabor Mate. He shows studies there of people that have been, exposed to stress, anxiety, different things, and how after many years they started developing health issues, and they're slowly starting to associate it with the emotions that had not been dealt in the past. So instead of trying to control your emotions, navigate them, feel them, and then see what's behind them, to start learning the narratives, the beliefs that you're telling yourself that are creating those emotions, that eventually creates reactions, behaviors, and things that you're trying to change. So the more we understand the mind, it makes it easier, I'm not saying easy, easier to start making change. It's all about the emotion intelligence, right? The logo of the mind and the heart, balancing the mind and the heart to work together eventually. But the more you try to control, you're coming normally 100% from the mind. You're not coming from the heart, because the heart loves and accepts what is. It's practicing unconditional love. And I'm not saying it's easy, guys. I'm still practicing it after 17 years, but I've seen amazing changes in my life, and that's what I want to share with you guys. If you have any questions, let me know in the chat, guys. If you're liking this, if you can type hashtag live if you're watching live, hashtag replay if you're watching replay. And if you have any questions, just let me know. I'll read you afterwards. And subscribe to the channel if you want to know more. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time, guys. Take care. Have a great week.